What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jerome. I'm back today with the review for this is How to Get Away with Murder. This is season 5. This is episode 3, and this episode is titled "The Baby Was Never Dead." So, without further ado, let's start the video. All right. So, just like with all How to Get Away with Murder episodes, we start from the present day and we rewind backwards to the past. So, in this episode, we still have the same scene where it ended last week, with Michaela in the bathroom with Bonnie, and Bonnie had the blood all over her, and Michaela's just asking Bonnie whose blood is that and all that kind of stuff. And Bonnie tells Michaela, calm down, I just cut myself. I cut myself when I was shaving and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, how dumb is Michaela to actually believe that Bonnie, in the middle of the winter, in the snow and all this kind of stuff, she cut herself shaving and it's still on her leg? You could at least... Nope, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that because I'm gonna keep it to myself. What I'm thinking she could have said, but and this is a family TV show, so I know they can't say what I'm thinking in my brain. But she tells Michaela she cut herself, and then we rewind backwards 2 months later. All right, so after to rewind 2 months backwards, we are in Bonnie is in her office. She has a note from Miller. I don't remember what the note said, and Nate is still looking at these photos from that from the files that he had from Denver and from the files from the people that he got last week. And then Laurel, she is over there with little baby Christopher, and she's trying to get baby Christopher to smile and laugh and all that kind of stuff, but he's not paying Laurel any attention. I'm like, I won't laugh at you either, but And then we got Oliver and Connor. Oliver has got, I think it's like those things that you put on to the, when you buy your bread and all that kind of stuff. I think he had one of those things wrapped around his finger so badly that it was cutting off his circulation. And, you got Michaela. She's in Tegan's office and she's putting some notes on Tegan's desk. And then you got New West. He is at his apartment and he has his computer and he's doing some weird stuff. I don't know what he's doing on his computer. And you got Asher knocking at the door trying to get some toilet paper. And then we also have Frank spying on New West as well. And I'm like, Frank, what the hell are you up to? And all this kind of stuff. And, then we have Annalise. She is in court and she's working on that case that her boss, Emmett, gave her last week to work on. And, she and Miller are both on the case and all that kind of stuff. And they're both giving their opening statements to the court and the jury, the judge and the jury and all that kind of stuff. And then, once they finish, with the opening statements, Annalise's client and his wife feels good. So they walk out into the hall, and then Annalise is approached by some reporters who ask Annalise, how does she feel about, the governor's new executive order that they've put in place, and will install her with her cases and all that kind of stuff, because it's basically her students are not able to help her with this new executive order that the governor has. All right, and then we are over at Kaplan and Gold. We have Michaela, Connor, and Laurel come in, and Laurel is once again still on the fact that baby Chris is not laughing and all that kind of stuff. And Connor is like, well, maybe he's a psycho, and all that kind of stuff. They joke and all that kind of stuff. And, Tegan comes into, because she found the file that Michaela had put on her desk, and she's like, how do you know anything about this? And Michaela's like, I still have access to your calendar and all that kind of stuff. And Tegan is like, okay, look here. You either stay out of my calendar and stay the hell out of my life and all that kind of stuff. And, Annalise comes in there talking about, saying that they're going to become experts on legal ethics and all that kind of stuff. And then, they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you guys obviously don't read and all that kind of stuff. So then New West, a.k.a. Gabriel, he pulls out his phone and he reads something that Annalise has sent to them, basically telling them that they have to do an ethics requirement and that, the exam is for tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. And what it is they're going to be reviewed by the ethics committee. And if they don't do this, then the clinic goes away, and so does that money for the tuition and all that kind of stuff. So basically they have to pull an all-nighter to get this taken care of. All right, and then we got Nate. He is meeting with the nurse who worked at the hospital 20 years ago when I guess we are to assume that baby was new baby West. Well, we are to assume that baby was New West, aka Gabriel. So, the woman is telling her story and all that kind of stuff about how the night of the kidnapping and all that kind of stuff. They had a bet on who would adopt the baby and all that kind of stuff. And then she says this whole thing happened on her watch, her schedule and all that kind of stuff. And basically everyone kind of blamed her for it. And then we also moved back to this nurse because, Nate is so focused on this nurse and all that kind of stuff. So he did find a file, and, it shows that the nurse has stage 4 terminal cancer and all that kind of stuff. And then, Nate once again goes and meets with this nurse. And this time, he's asking her how long has she been sick and all that kind of stuff. He tells her about the medication that she's on, which is, I guess because she's at the end of her stage of cancer that is at this point terminal. And, he's talking about, is that the way you want to go out and all that kind of stuff? Don't you want to free your conscience and all that kind of stuff? So then, the nurse does tell everything. And, she mentions how the baby's grandfather was there. And he said, no, it was actually his mother. And she was like, yes, it was her. Because after the birth, she dropped the baby off. But then she had so much guilt about it that she wanted to come back. But her father wanted to protect her from the police and all that kind of stuff. And, he shows the nurse a picture of Bonnie, and he asked the nurse, is this the woman that took the baby? And she said, yes. All right, so then we have back at the courthouse, we got Miller. He is talking to Bonnie about the case and all that kind of stuff. He thinks he got this in the bag right now. And, and Bonnie's trying to tell him, nope, don't underestimate Annalise and all that kind of stuff. And Annalise actually overhears and sees Bonnie with Miller. So we move back into the courtroom, and you got Miller. He's calling his witness to the stand, and his witness is actually the defense's witness as well. And Emmett is upset about this because he's like, she wasn't a part of the she wasn't one of their witnesses and all that kind of stuff. And he mentions her statement and all that kind of stuff. So then, Miller and Emmett, they are arguing about this woman and all that kind of stuff. And basically what it is that she's completely changed her testimony. And, she's talking about how she was afraid, and all that kind of stuff. So then we have Emmett, and he's upset. And, he's asking his client if he was with her, this secretary, the whole time. And he says yes and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, the bitch is being paid and all that kind of stuff. And then, Annalise is telling them how she wants to pin it against Doris, the secretary, and all that kind of stuff. And their client is saying no, that he doesn't want to he don't want to pin it on her, on all that kind of stuff. So he's like, Annalise, why don't you put me on the stand? And Emmett is like, Annalise says no to that, but Emmett's like, what? Yeah, we'll put you on the stand. And Annalise is like, why would you want to put him on the stand? Like, you're not likable at all. Like, we have a jury full of women who are not going to like you and all that kind of stuff. And basically, when she asked Emmett why did he do it, basically Emmett did this for money reasons because of them losing the entire case and all, the entire deal and all that kind of stuff. So basically, he's just trying to get some more money and all that kind of stuff. So when Annalise is in the office with Emmett, in walks Oliver, and Annalise says that she'll find something. He can, if anything can be found on the witness Doris, that Oliver is going to be the one that can find that information for her. And he's like, no, I don't want to find any information on her. We're not using her and all that kind of stuff. But Annalise is like, what? Do it your way, but I'm still going to use him. And at the end of it, if if we find something, you're going to look stupid as hell when I do find something. All right, so then we move back to the kids. They're still studying for, this whole test they have, basically this meeting that they have with the ethics committee. So you got Laurel. She is in there, and she's watching this live feed that from the daycare, because Connor asked her, like, you have a nanny cam in there? She's like, no, it's a live feed and all that kind of stuff. And she's still obsessed with little baby Christopher not laughing and all that kind of stuff. And, then Michaela got on my nerves this episode because she's bitching about Tegan, having an issue with her. But then, Tegan helped get baby Christopher into the daycare and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, to me, it feels like there's something that Michaela wants from Tegan, but she won't say it. And I feel like Michaela likes Tegan in a sexual way and all that kind of stuff. And Michaela just will not admit to it and all that kind of stuff. And then, Oliver comes in, and, he overhears them talking about Michaela and Tegan and all that kind of stuff. And basically saying the same thing. Maybe she should sleep with her and all that kind of stuff. And then, he's telling them how Annalise has hired him on to help with the the case and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, she hired you on to work with the case, and he's like, she trusts me and all that kind of stuff. And then they're talking about New West, who's over there, and they're all gazing at him. And he looks up and like, what are you guys looking at? And they look away. All right, so Frank is coming off very stalkerish and very creepish this season so far. So he breaks into New West's apartment, and when Asher came over and New West was on his phone and he was on that computer, he stuck it up the chimney and all that kind of stuff. So when Frank goes in there, he takes the bag down. He finds in the bag there was a stash of money and there was a fake ID with the name of Mark Jackson on there. So Frank also finds another thing. I wasn't quite sure what that was, but Frank takes it with him. And then Frank is meeting with some guy and, he's trying to get information on it and all that kind of stuff. And basically what he finds out about it is that it is a browser where he can send anonymous emails and all that kind of stuff. So basically what his guy is going to do for him is he's going to make it where Frank can see New West, aka Gabriel's computer screen, but New West, aka Gabriel, will not be able to see Frank looking at his screen and all that kind of stuff. So then later on in the episode, we get Frank. He's meeting up with him, and he does have this information for Frank to go put on New West's computer so that he can see what is going on and all that kind of stuff. All right, so then we got Asher. He is going over to Miller's office, and what he's doing is he's trying to fill Miller in on what he thinks Annalise's next step is, and he thinks that Annalise's next step is to try to flip this and put it on to the secretary, which Asher is actually correct, but Miller does not want to hear this and all that kind of stuff. And, Miller then questions him like, how do you know so much? And he was like, because you only worked for Annalise for you were only her intern for 5 minutes. And Asher's like, it's a lot more than that. I was actually a part of her inner circle and all that kind of stuff. And Miller was like, well, if you were a part of her inner circle, why didn't Bonnie want to get you a job here and all that kind of stuff? And, he's like, I can't really speak on that right now. But then he does say, that it is a little bit more complicated and personal than what is going on. So then we have Miller. He's going over to Bonnie's office, and then when he's in Bonnie's office, he's actually questioning Bonnie about her sleeping with Asher and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, so I was supposed to tell you that I slept with Asher? Like, where the fuck that come from? Like, who are you to sit here and tell me that I got to tell you who I'm sleeping with and who I did or didn't sleep with? She was like, did you tell me about all the paralegals that you slept with and all that kind of stuff? And basically what it is Bonnie is trying to push Miller away because she's like, there's so much worse about him. She's like, I don't like dogs, I don't like this, I don't like that, XYZ. And Miller is like, it's not about that and all that kind of stuff. He's still stuck on the fact about who she slept with and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why does that really matter to you? Like, it really shouldn't matter to Miller too much who Bonnie has slept with and who she hasn't slept with. All right, then we got Nate. He is with that woman who did the DNA test for him at the hospital and all that kind of stuff. And she's coming to him talking about how she has two tickets from her dad to go see a game and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise comes in and she was like, is this a bad time? Like, did I walk in on something? And he was like, no, all is good. So when the other lady leaves, and he asks Annalise what's going on. Is this about the governor's executive order? And she says, everything is good. We actually do have a date for his dad's case and all that kind of stuff. And, he asked her, she was like, do you want me to tell him or should I? And, Nate says he'll tell his dad and all that kind of stuff. And then on Annalise's way out, she says, she seems like a nice woman and all that kind of stuff. And then, he asked Annalise, is she getting out and all that kind of stuff? And Annalise is like, nope, I'm not getting out. Right now I'm only dating my clients and my cases and all that kind of stuff. And, he has that photo of the nurse in his hand, but he doesn't mention anything to Annalise. And I'm like, why can you not say something? Here's your opportunity. You could have said something to her then. But I guess he didn't say nothing because he doesn't have a lot of information to present to her right now. And we'll actually get to that a little bit later. All right, so then we see Annalise. She's back at Kaplan and Gold, and we see Tegan. She is, questioning the client and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise goes up to Emmett and asks Emmett why is Tegan there and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise jumps in. She starts cross-examining their client and all that kind of stuff. And then he goes off on Annalise and all that kind of stuff. And Tegan jumps to Annalise's defense. But then he, completely comes at both Annalise and Tegan because they are both single women and all that kind of stuff. And he comes off very sexist and all that kind of stuff. And then, basically Annalise is like, and this is why, you don't want to put his ass on the stand, because we got a jury full of women, and listen to what he's saying to us, because we single women, we need to go out, we need to put on some heels, and, we need to try to find a man and all that kind of stuff, which is completely sexist. And if you were to put him on the stand and he said some shit like that, that would immediately turn a jury full of women completely off and all that kind of stuff. And then, Emmett is talking about how, they will fire him and they will quit the case and all that kind of stuff. And then, their client gets up and says, basically, you can't do that shit. Like, remember what happened in London and all that kind of stuff. So then we have Annalise. She is going toward the elevator. Her and Tegan are going toward the elevator. Then they get on the elevator and, Annalise asks Tegan, do you know what happened in London and all that kind of stuff? And Tegan's like, the only thing that I know was misconduct. And Annalise was like, sexual misconduct? And she was like, I don't really know, and I'm not trying to find out. And if you were smart, you wouldn't try to find out anything as well. So then they get off the elevator, and you got Michaela, who sees them getting off the elevator, and she's still sulking. I'm like, oh my God, Michaela, why don't you just tell Tegan you want to have sex with her? Like, that's really truly what it is. So Michaela then follows Tegan, and she's like, you can forgive everybody else, but you can't forgive me. And I'm like, Michaela, please shut up. So, like I said, Michaela, jealous ass, follows her to, she's like a jealous, scorned lover at this point. So she follows Tegan into her office, and, Tegan's like, girl, your little ass do not follow instructions, do you? Like, I wanted you to stay the hell away from me. Like, what the hell do you not understand about stay the hell away from me? Like, what part of that don't you get? So basically, Michaela's like, you know what, I want to make things right between us and all that kind of stuff. And Tegan is like, you can't make anything right between us because, you lied to me and all that kind of stuff. Like, you knew what I had to go through to get here. Like, I had to, give up the woman that I love, having a family and all that kind of stuff. And then, for all that stuff, I'm now second fiddle to Annalise, and I'm here with a white man that likes to fill up and all that kind of stuff. And then I have to look at you with your career, and mine is in the dumps and all that kind of stuff. And, Michaela's like, I'm not giving up on you. Well, not you. I'm not giving up on us. It's like Michaela wants to have sex with Tegan. Michaela doesn't realize that she might be a lesbian, but Michaela has a thing for Tegan, and I can clearly see that. Like, you have a thing for Tegan. You want to talk about it. Last season, she was talking about how it was because Tegan was a boss black woman and all that kind of stuff. Well, Annalise is the same thing, a boss black woman, but you have so much of an issue with Annalise. But when it comes to Tegan, you have no issues with Tegan. Like, it's a double standard, Michaela. All right, and then we have Connor. He is calling Asher, trying to get help with Asher, get help from Asher on the case, so that he can ace his ethics stuff and all that kind of stuff. And basically, Asher's telling him, motherfucker, it ain't gonna happen. I'm not helping. I'm not helping you. I'm not helping Annalise. I'm not helping anybody. And while he's on the phone, Annalise actually overhears him, and she comes into the office, takes the phone, and she's like, why are you calling Asher for help? Like, you're not asking him for help. We are not doing that kind of stuff. Like, you guys need to stay up and figure this stuff out on your own and all that kind of stuff. And then, Annalise asks Oliver if he has anything, and he says no to her. And then, Laurel is with baby Christopher, and New West, aka Gabriel, is there. And basically, he's telling Laurel, he has a single mother and all that kind of stuff, and not to be hard on herself. And, maybe the reason why baby Christopher is not laughing is because she's just not funny. I'm like, you are correct. She's not funny, but her face is funny looking as fuck. All right, and then we move over to Bonnie. She gets a call from Miller, and she declines that phone call, and it goes straight to voicemail. And Miller leaves a voicemail for Bonnie, basically apologizing to Bonnie for all the stuff that happens. And then Asher, he goes into the office where Miller is, and he has some help from Miller. And, he shows him that he has his cell phone, and he shows him on his phone the governor's executive order. So then we see the scene where Miller is meeting up with Annalise. And basically what it is Miller wants to offer Annalise a deal. And Annalise is like, oh, so now you're interested in this, and that piques her interest, and then she says no deal. Well, she didn't give him an answer. So then we have Annalise. She is meeting with Bonnie and all that kind of stuff, and she's asking Bonnie, like, did you tell him about this stuff and all that kind of stuff? Did you tell him, Miller, anything? Because he offered me a deal and all that kind of stuff. And Bonnie's like, I didn't tell him anything. Actually, we're on the outs right now because he got up, I got up, we got into a fight because of Asher and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise is asking her, well, why come you didn't tell me about Asher working for Miller and all that kind of stuff? She's like, because Annalise feels like she should have known because Miller is Bonnie's boyfriend and also her boss and all that kind of stuff. And then Bonnie is once again talking about how once he finds out all that kind of stuff, everything about her, and even Annalise confirmed it, that you are afraid that once he finds out more about you, that he will leave you and all that kind of stuff. And basically Annalise tells her it's better just to be honest with Miller than to sit here and lie to him. And then Bonnie asks Annalise, are you gonna take the deal? And Annalise is like, hell fuck no, I'm not taking no deal from Miller. All right, and then we got all the kids. They are at the kids' home and they're all studying. And then Frank calls New West, basically trying to meet up with New West to go out and have a drink and all that kind of stuff. And New West is like, can't do it. I'm actually studying with some of my friends and all that kind of stuff. And then Oliver, he found something on the computer, and Frank overheard him. He's like, who is that? And New West is like, oh, one of my friends from the clinic and all that kind of stuff. And then Oliver calls Annalise and basically tells Annalise that the secretary had emails in her computer from the wife who was actually having an affair with the dead man Andrew and all that kind of stuff. So then we move over to Kaplan and Gold, where it is Emmett and Annalise, and they're questioning the client and all that kind of stuff. And they said, so you killed Andrew because your wife was having an affair with him? And he was like, no, I didn't kill him. My wife actually killed him, and he gives a reason of why she killed him. And he says that the belt was not his, it was actually his wife's. And for so long that his wife has wanted to say that she's the one that did it, but he's like, I'm not gonna let her go down for something like that. I'm gonna take the blame for it and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing that you guys can say or do that's gonna change his mind. All right, so now we have the kids. They are actually getting ready for their ethics. They're meeting with the ethics committee and all that kind of stuff. So the ethics committee is asking them questions, and coincidentally, all the questions that the ethics committee is asking them, you have Annalise and Emmett talking, and the questions basically coincide with what Annalise and Emmett are planning on doing. So Annalise is saying that what they need to do is slip Miller the emails and all that kind of stuff, and then the client gets released and Emmett gets his money, and the client's company is still good and all that kind of stuff. So what it is Annalise needs to find a new suspect, and Emmett is like an hour before the case and all that kind of stuff. And then we go into the courtroom and all that kind of stuff, and they're Annalise is questioning the secretary, and basically what it is they're going to make the secretary out to be the suspect and all that kind of stuff. So what it is Annalise wants the secretary to try on the belt, because I guess this is a woman's belt, and Miller's like, no, if the witness is going to try on the belt, so is the defendant. And Annalise kind of pauses for a minute, and then she goes and talks to Emmett and the client and all that kind of stuff. But then Annalise agrees, if the witness tries on the belt, then so will their client and all that kind of stuff. So the witness tries on the belt, and it fit her completely. And then the defendant tried on the belt, and much like with the O.J. Simpson case with the glove and all that kind of stuff, the belt did not fit. And he says if the belt doesn't fit, then you must acquit and all that kind of stuff. So, the jury actually does come back and they have a guilty verdict, which I was not surprised about, but I was a little bit surprised about. And then, you have Connor. He is still with the ethics committee and all that kind of stuff. And he's going off on the ethics committee. And because if you notice, with the ethics committee, the questions they kept asking, they kept mentioning their boss, and they kept saying a she and all that kind of stuff. And Connor was the only one who actually said something about that and brought it up. So then you got Annalise and Emmett. They are talking to the client and all that kind of stuff, and they're telling him what they're going to be able to do for him and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise mentions how the jury just basically hated him from the get-go because of his book and all that kind of stuff. and how they could have saved him if he threw his wife under the bus. But he says that, the company is not as important to him as his wife, which I guess I actually get that. But, like early on in the episode, he just came off as a sexist pig and all that kind of stuff, which, like I said, it made him unlikable by the jury. And then lastly, we got Laurel. She comes up with baby Christopher and all that kind of stuff. And Oliver comes in to tell the kids that he got a job with Kaplan and Gold and all that kind of stuff. And then Annalise comes in. She has the test results. And everyone passed and all that kind of stuff. And then baby Christopher starts laughing. And all the kids are excited. They were like, he's laughing. And Annalise is like, why is that a good thing? They said, because this is the first time he's laughed. She said, no, it's not, because he laughs for me all the time. I'm like, ooh, egg out over your face, Laurel. Like, your baby don't even laugh with you, but he laughs with Annalise. Like, egg on your face. So then we got Annalise and Tegan. They talking and all that kind of stuff. And, they're talking about the case and how the jury actually hated the client more than they hated him and all that kind of stuff. And, they walk by Emmett's office, and Emmett is drowning himself in some alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And, Tegan is like, you know what? He's a big boy. He can get himself out of, he'll get him to take care of himself and get himself together and all that kind of stuff. And then, Annalise jokes with Tegan about, well, you took Niles' advice and wore some high heels. And she was like, girl, I'm about to go salsa dancing. And she's like, you can join if you want to. And Annalise is like, nope, I got a dinner date with myself when I get home and all that kind of stuff. So then you have Asher, who has been like the biggest kid because they won that case and all that kind of stuff. And Miller's like, you know what, don't have time for it. So he goes to apologize to Bonnie and all that kind of stuff. And, Bonnie's just talking about how she's scared and all that kind of stuff, and how she's complicated and all that kind of stuff. And how she just really basically doesn't want to screw things up. And Miller, they start kissing and all that kind of stuff. And then once again, Frank is meeting up with his guy, basically telling him, and I think I mentioned this earlier, telling him that he has, the software that he needs so that he can look at New West's, aka Gabriel's computer, and him be none the wiser that he's looking at his computer. So then Frank goes and puts the stuff on his computer and all that kind of stuff. And on his way down from the apartment, he runs into Michaela, who was going to go to Asher's apartment, basically to ask Asher to take her back and all that kind of stuff. And she's drunk as fuck. So they sit down and they start talking and all that kind of stuff. And they both lie about why they were really there. And, she asked Frank, was he still mad at Laurel? And I think Frank said yes, that he was mad at Laurel. But Frank is like, you know what, get up, drunkie. I'm going to take you home and all that kind of stuff. And, Michaela is complaining about how nobody likes her, which is true. Like, you come off as a bitch. Like, that's why people don't like you. But Frank tried to make Michaela feel better. So then we move back over at Kaplan and Gold, and Oliver is there. And, New West, a.k.a. Gabriel, he gets a phone call, and it's from his mom, and it's on that flip phone. And then, Oliver plays over that conversation with Frank in his head about this cell phone. And then it kind of, two and two are put together. And then, Nate, he goes over to Annalise's and all that kind of stuff. And he basically he gives Annalise the files that Denver had on Bonnie and all that kind of stuff. And he tells her how, her son, he never died, that, he was kidnapped. And he says that Bonnie kidnapped her son. And he shows Annalise the photos of Bonnie. And she's like, that's not Bonnie. That's her sister that actually took the baby. So then we flash back to the present, which is Oliver and Connor's wedding. And, the DJ is calling for the two grooms to come up. So we see Connor go up, and Connor's face is like bruised up because he got stitches and all that kind of stuff. But we don't have Oliver. And then we see we don't know if this is Bonnie or if this is her sister walking back into the party. And Michaela's just sitting over there looking at her. And that's how the episode ended. So, I'm really confused. So are we looking at Bonnie or are we looking at Bonnie's sister? And the person that's dead, is that Bonnie or Bonnie's sister that's dead in the snow? Tell me what you guys think. If anybody's watching this video, like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys later.